Hello and welcome to D&I Conversations in Facilities Management with Louise Lowe's, powered by Boden Group. Today is a very special episode of the podcast where we will be taking you through a guide to inclusive recruitment. Our specialist executive recruiter, Louise Lowe's, who is also the host of this podcast, is going to be taking us through every stage of the recruitment process and all of the considerations to ensure that your recruitment is as inclusive as it can possibly be. Hello, Louise.
Good morning, Rowena.
How are you?
I'm very well.
Thank you so much for joining us today. Once again, today we're going to be tapping into your expertise specifically. Louise, do you want to tell us a little bit about your background in FM recruitment to remind the audience?
Yeah, I've been working in FM recruitment now for probably 11 or 12 years. I've recruited at the mid to senior level, so generally from about 40k right up to senior global leads for accounts. So I've recruited right across from commercial individuals to account leads, to technical leads, to bid, business development. So I've worked across a broad range of roles within the FM sector.
And how important is the actual recruitment process of a company to the overall diversity and inclusion strategy of that company?
It's absolutely key because D&I has never been so important, and especially to some FM businesses that historically have been very sort of hard services and engineering led, and they're trying to evolve into TFM businesses now and looking to recruit a more diverse workforce. It starts right from the beginning, from job descriptions, application process selection and onboarding. And there's certain elements that I think people overlook or don't think enough about, and job descriptions and adverts are one of those. I was at a recent recruitment afternoon with one of the key global FM operators, and it was brought up there about their job descriptions and how archaic they are and how they need to change. Mm-hmm. And they and the talent team absolutely took that on board, and it is an evolving process. They are going to be changing them because as it stands, they're not inclusive enough. They're not appealing to a wide enough audience. Mm-hmm. And to start with, that will put certain demographics off as soon as they see a job description or an advert. So starting with job descriptions and adverts.
What are some of the key bits of advice that you would give to your clients to make their job descriptions or their external job ads more appealing to a more diverse audience?
Mm-hmm. I think when advertising, I think definitely using gender biased decoders, which is what we do with all our adverts, mm-hmm. It is really important, again, to get the breadth probably from a gender perspective. So if there's lots of male coded words like strong, leader, decision making, mm-hmm. some of that use of certain language will put off certain parts of the community, and they just won't even look at applying for a role. There's lots of statistics around this in terms of females being put off or not thinking they are capable enough for roles.
Yeah, isn't the statistics something like women are 90% less likely to apply for a job if they don't hit 100% of the criteria, yeah. Whereas men are more likely to apply for the job if they hit 50% of the criteria. So those male coded words can really have an effect on the psyche of a female applicant.
Yeah, massively, and this is a big issue within the FM sector anyway, that there are not enough females in senior leadership roles. So we need to be attracting more female talent into the sector at grassroots level, mm-hmm. and senior level, of course, but grassroots level to then develop them over the coming years, mm-hmm. because it's been proven that there are a lot of people within the FM sector coming up to retirement age, and, mm-hmm. and so the need for senior talent it is going to be prevalent, really, really important, mm-hmm. in the next 5 years.
And age is a really interesting one, isn't it? Because, I mean, we're talking about putting women off, but actually when we look at the general demographic of facilities management applicants, we do seem to have a much older candidate pool. What would you say to organisations who are really looking to tap into a younger audience?
it is a challenging one because using language such as, specifying 10, 15 years, 5 years experience, it is ageism. Because essentially it's about the skills, behaviours, experience that you can bring to the role.
And sometimes the skills that, a younger candidate can bring can massively outweigh the experience of someone who's got that 10 years experience. Yeah,
absolutely. The younger generation will have the, potentially the innovation, they'll have the technology understanding. It will put, so if you say I need 5 years experience minimum, it will put a lot of people off. I've seen it even recently, someone saying, I need X amount of years experience. I have challenged that in terms of why is that so important? What about someone who is really maybe got 3 years experience but is really chomping at the bit to develop and could develop really well into that role. So and then I think it is part of our job as recruiters as well to also push back on that and really challenge why that's so important to them and try and maybe influence them to see a different point of view.
So that's gender and age. Is there any other advice you'd give when writing a job ad to make sure it's including the entire community?
Yeah, well obviously if you're putting things like physically fit, active, lots of walking around a certain site, obviously that could be perceived as being biased against the
so that's more ableism, isn't it?
Ableism, it's anybody with a physical disability, it's going to go against them, so they won't apply for roles when actually they could be perfectly competent to do the job. And actually say it's at a large site, it's like, well, they're the right person for the job, what can be done to help them in that role. It's
not just physical disability to consider either, is it? I mean, I remember chatting to an internal recruiter who had talked about the fact they always used to write, you must have excellent communication skills, you must have good written skills.
Absolutely.
But actually there are a number of kind of learning disabilities or dyslexia or neurodiversity that again will be really excluded using words like that.
Yeah.
Is it necessary for someone to have excellent written skills or actually when you say great communication, do you mean good relationship building skills?
Absolutely, and I've really been aware of things like that.
Yeah,
in my adverts, I'm really trying to decode things and make it as make the adverts as broad as I possibly can and use more elaborative language and not so pointed. I have heard some great best practice recently of some people I've spoken to have been involved in large moves and changes projects, saying about how they into buildings they're putting pictures in rooms instead of numbers and letters, so anyone who's neurodiverse, they're not going to be challenged by that. And even to the degree that they're putting carpets in that are more soothing to anyone with autism, Asperger's on that spectrum, that isn't going to bright colours, so it's not triggering, or for anyone with the likes of epilepsy, etc. as well. So I think there's some
great initiatives.
Going on with that's more within a physical built environment. But I think there's a long way to go in terms of sort of job descriptions, adverts, and it's something we should be challenging with our clients as well. If we feel a job description is biased, is just being really honest with our clients, because I think a lot of job descriptions people sometimes write in a hurry. They are rehashed from historic job descriptions, and I don't think and I think most clients would be horrified if they thought that they were being biased in that job description.
It's interesting, isn't it, when you write something raw and then you run it through a decoder and you see actually the number of biases that you didn't even know you had in the way that you've written.
Absolutely. And it's also, again, relating to the inclusion in adverts, it's words like evening and weekend work might be required. That may go against both working mothers and fathers who share childcare and are going, gosh, I'm not going to be able to do the evenings because I've got childcare, young children, or childcare requirements at the moment. When actually that there is a policy to help them.
And this isn't just for the benefit of the candidates. There are so few candidates out there right now that ensuring that the talent pool you're drawing from is as large as possible is actually absolutely necessary right now, isn't it?
Absolutely. It is key, for the amount of applicants per role. It's gone down exponentially even since Christmas. We're all noticing it. So the more inclusive you can be and the the better the breadth of shortlist that you can give to clients is really important.
So that's job descriptions and adverts. Once the job description is written and the advert is out there, what next? Where should people be thinking about advertising?
Yeah, I think that it's a very good point. I think people can be quite fixed on using, the usual generic job boards or an industry-specific job boards. It is looking outside of that, using more inclusive, imagery, inclusive language, looking at some of the affiliate groups that you could work with, so the likes of LGBT,
absolutely, LGBT plus in FM, putting jobs out through your affiliate networks to reach a wider audience.
Wider audience is absolutely key. Any affiliate groups on LinkedIn, anything like that. Make sure that your website is accessible. Something we do is use the Recite Me toolbar.
Yeah, that's right.
Which is really important again for anyone with neurodiversity
or visual impairment.
Yeah. So that's really important to make sure you're getting the breadth of applicants. And it sounds really, really basic, but advertising internally as well, not as an afterthought right at the beginning of the process, so that people are feeling included from an internal point of view as well.
Yeah, and making sure that's communicated really well, not just do you know anyone? No, I don't know anyone. Oh, okay then. Well, let's put it on a notice board somewhere. But if you're going to advertise internally, making sure everyone that could possibly have a chance at developing into that role can see that the opportunities there.
Absolutely. And again, I've seen very good and very bad practice with this, where some of my clients have excellent intranets. They find out about new jobs straight away. It's a very easy process to move internally. Others, not so much so. It is very much almost nepotism for someone's cherry picked and it's not advertised internally at all. Or because they're performing well on a certain account, it's made difficult for them to move internally. Or it's difficult to move sectors, or it's difficult to move divisions. It's not made. In fact, I spoke to a number of people who've gone, it is as difficult to move internally or challenging to move internally as it is externally, which it shouldn't be the case.
No, absolutely.
Absolutely, everybody should go through the same process as an external applicant for an internal role. But the actual process is made difficult. But again, people will think, oh well, I'll go externally instead of looking internally. And again, you're not maximising your existing talent base.
Completely, you're absolutely right. So we've written a job description, we've got a really compelling advert, and we've advertised it in a bunch of diverse places that we wouldn't normally think of, alongside inclusive imagery, using inclusive language on websites that are completely accessible. So now people are starting to apply. What do hiring managers need to think about as people begin to apply?
Yeah, I think one really good point is anonymising CVs.
Oh yeah.
Having the software to take names off to start with. So again, from a gender point of view, you don't know, going through that blind application process, full stop, right to interview stage. I know it's something that you've conducted very successfully.
That's right. I did a blind application process for my current employee, who is a marketing executive, where I had all of the applicants fill out a competency-based form, so I didn't even see a CV from them. That meant I didn't know how old they were, I didn't know what gender they were, I didn't know if they had university experience, I didn't know what previous career history they had. I was marking all of them against the same questions, which were completely based on their competency and their understanding of the subject matter.
Great.
And that meant that the applicants I had all had a complete equal footing without any prior judgment from me in terms of if I went to the same university as them, or if I knew the companies that they'd already worked at, or if I felt they needed to have had experience in a certain sector or that would be helpful. Instead, I was removing all of that noise and just marking them on their actual real life competency.
Yeah, and education is a really important one. It's so key to encourage people from different backgrounds who have varying access to academic institutions. So, it also taps into the unconscious bias.
Yeah. So is a university degree actually necessary? Asking that question with every single role.
Yeah.
Does this person actually need a university degree?
But it's also, again, unconscious bias related to, they've gone to a Russell Group university, so therefore they must be perceived as better or more educated. And actually, socioeconomic factors might have led them to not being able to go to a Russell Group university, especially if they are of the younger generation who've had to pay for their own education. It's a very different scenario to people who got it for free.
And the number of extremely talented people who have their degrees from the Open University,
absolutely,
which is an incredible resource for gaining further education.
Yeah, absolutely.
But really kind of interrogating your own bias around university degrees and if one is needed or if relevant experience could actually, do the trick.
Yeah.
As you say, which university does it really matter?
Yeah.
Does it?
The next really important one is current salary. Is not asking what they're on at the moment. Have a salary range for the role, advertise it, and really pay them what they're worth.
This is such a pet peeve of mine. I, first of all, can't stand it when jobs don't advertise the salary in the advert, because ultimately, however much any of us say, the money doesn't matter, we all have to pay the bills, and goodwill doesn't pay the bills. So why would anyone waste their time applying for a job when they don't even know if the salary is going to cover what they need to live on?
Yeah.
But then also, I think being asked what you're currently on as kind of a scale of what somebody will offer you, again, I find that really frustrating. If you know what your salary band is, pay the person what they're worth within that salary band.
Yeah.
You don't need to know what they used to be on. That's completely irrelevant, especially in a market like right now where salaries are climbing quicker than we're used to seeing.
Yeah. And
the cost of living is climbing even faster.
Absolutely. I mean, I'm seeing candidates, especially in the big demand sectors like energy and sustainability, getting £15,000-20,000 increases at the moment.
Yeah.
Because of the demand outweighing the purely the supply. It's market economics.
Yeah.
But also regarding the good point about advertising your salaries, it wastes people's time.
Yeah.
I've got so many friends who have gone through a whole process, gone through a first interview stage, then to be called back for second stage without knowing salary level. And I constantly say to people, do not go for an interview until unless you know really clearly what that salary level is. It's just wasting everyone's time.
It's a waste of hiring managers.
It's wasting everybody's time. It's even if it's only an hour on Teams. Well, that's all the preparation that the candidate does, that the hiring manager does, looking at the CV. Yeah. And then suddenly, if they're 10 grand out, no one's going to move for that at the moment. So again, it's a time-saving issue as well.
I really I struggle to see a reason to not advertise a salary up front. Like I really struggle to see any excuse for that. That you know what you're going to be paying someone. Tell them, even if it's range. Tell them what that range is.
Certainly, I've within my experience, I've seen so few scenarios where it's truly confidential and that it's important not to advertise it generally, and I will always challenge that to say, don't put it on the advert. Why?
Why?
Because
either you're hiding it from your current employees because you're underpaying them, or you're hiding it from your prospective employees so that you can underpay them.
Very good point. And finally, within the application process is scoring methods. Standardise them. I'm not saying have exact scripted answers, but have competency-based questions. So it is a fair marking system. I think that's really, really important. And to be fair, a lot of my clients are very good at that.
Yeah, I think certainly within the application process, if you've got a number of things that you're looking for when people apply, and it's almost like a tick box exercise. That way you're almost measuring people against the same set of standards, aren't you? Rather than going, I really like the look of this fella because his experience is really similar to mine.
Exactly, and it's coming back to different variations of unconscious bias.
Yeah, absolutely. Now we come to shortlisting those applications and moving into interview.
Yeah.
What are the key things that people need to look out for, both in shortlisting and interviewing people?
Okay. From a shortlisting perspective, as we've touched on, user scoring criteria. It's really important for fairness.
Yeah.
make sure that there is a diverse panel involved. This is getting much better. Certainly, I think with some of my clients within the FM sector, where they are going, right, we are going to employ someone on the panel who doesn't directly do that role, but are in a senior role within the business, so they can look at things from a cultural fit perspective, not just a technical perspective. So where they're getting 2 or 3 people in, and one is there to look at things from a different perspective, whether that's a cultural fit perspective, a diversity perspective.
I think that's both at shortlisting and at interview. Getting a second pair of eyes on your shortlist to make sure that you've got as diverse a shortlist as you possibly can. I think that's something lots of people don't tend to do. They kind of do that in isolation, but actually in exactly the same way as people are starting to have more diverse interviewing panels, I think it can be really helpful to have a diverse group of people or a diverse couple of people putting together a shortlist, just to make sure that all of the questions are being asked.
Yeah, and again that leads on to obviously interviews for candidates with a disability, potentially, consider guaranteed interviews for them. So again, you've got the breadth of a shortlist as well. In your screening process, asking as part of the application process, have you got an obvious or hidden disability that we need to be aware of so that we can help you make adjustments for the interviewing process.
Actually, if you want to be a disability confident employer through the governmental scheme, that's something that they expect from you, to offer guaranteed interviews to candidates with a disability, as a way of kind of showing that you'll go above and beyond to make sure that you're making the right adjustments where necessary.
And also touching on interviews, also interview training. It's really, really important for new managers, making sure that they know how to interview. There's a lot of poor interviews out there. There's a lot of very good interviews out there, but again, it's part of the responsibility of the company to make sure people have been trained and developed in that way, so they're confident interviewing and confident knowing what they're looking for. And
also just knowing what they can and can't ask. I can't tell you the number of times in an interview I've been asked if I'm planning on having any more children, or when I was younger, if I was planning on having children at all. It takes me aback every time I hear it, but it happens often that women are asked about their intentions to have a family. It's just not okay to do that.
It's really, really
it's not okay to do that at all.
It's a very personal thing, and a lot of people don't feel comfortable sharing it.
But it's absolutely nothing to do with the employer whatsoever.
And your ability to do a job. Moving on to evaluation, obviously use the same questions so that the assessment is fair. Consider other competency assessments instead of interviews. So it's been proven that the best way of assessment is an assessment centre.
What's an assessment centre? So
an assessment centre is where you have a variety of methods. So yes, there might be a straightforward interview, but there'll also be potentially psychometric testing, group work, scenario testing. So you've got a broader range of assessment rather than purely a straightforward interview. And again, I always advise clients to do psychometric testing between first and second stage.
At the executive level.
At the executive level, so you're not ruling people out straight away, but that you're using it as a great tool in conjunction with interviews and other assessment methods to then maybe bring elements out of what they need to do that job well.
Around this, it's as much about not testing people at all, not interviewing people, but finding some more creative ways. So job auditions, for example, where you kind of bring someone in to do the job for a day as opposed to interviewing them. Because, especially people with neurodiversity issues, interviews can be traumatizing. They can they really don't bring out the best in people. So finding ways of doing on the job interviews or role plays or job auditions can be a much more helpful way of bringing people into an organisation if they have those kinds of barriers.
Another really good point is get feedback from candidates about their interview experience with the client. Some of my clients do it very well. They do send out interview questionnaires about their experience. But that's got to be based on people they've hired and not hired to gain that breadth of feedback,
completely,
to make it fair.
Yeah, feedback is so important. You cannot get better within your recruitment process if you are not asking people what's good and what's bad currently.
Yeah, and coming on to offer stage, obviously make an offer based on the candidate's skills and worth, not their current salary.
Yeah.
You know, look at the benefits package, what are the inclusive options, ask about adjustments for new starters. Even things like, I'm finding now quite a lot of my clients are saying, well, I only do electric cars. That's fine, but what happens if people haven't passed a test? Obviously that's a big issue within the last 2 years, where it's difficult to get a driving test at the moment. People who for personal reasons can't drive, so they're epileptic or something like that, haven't got the space at home, haven't got the anywhere to put a charging point. So great as electric cars are, it's not always the right thing for everybody within a role.
Still needs to be some flexibility.
And that's a very specific example, but it's trying to be, and a lot of my clients, within FM, a lot of the benefits package are varied, they are very tailored, but again.
But even down to things like how many people have a gym membership as part of their benefits package? Is there an alternative for a candidate or for a new starter who has a physical disability and can't use the gym? Just really kind of going back into all those details and making sure that if you're offering a gym membership, for example, can you offer, an alternative well-being benefit to a candidate who can't use a gym?
Absolutely.
It's day one and it's time for onboarding. What kinds of things should hiring managers be aware of for a new candidate on day one and ensuring that they have an inclusive start to their time at the company?
Yeah. Welcome packs prior to the first day are really useful with all relevant information. Again, there varies. More people are sending them out where you've got not just your benefits packages, but your EDI relevant information. So your EDI policy, affinity networks they can join.
Even things like floor plans, again, for people who have neurodiversity issues or who are on, the autism spectrum, having that certainty before they start, before they arrive, can be hugely impactful for lowering anxiety levels.
And if so, for example, someone's got a physical disability, do they need a specific chair? Do they need a desk at a certain level? Do they need specialist equipment that they need to have so they don't fit? So they feel included from day one. People focused on boarding.
Making sure people have like meetings booked with the relevant people for their first couple of days, so they start to integrate and get to know people and don't just leave them with a laptop and a handbook and expect them to get started and do it themselves.
That leads to the whole colleague integration activity, take somebody out for lunch on the first day,
completely.
Make them feel welcome, make them feel included. Establishing obviously preferred pronouns, that's very important to everybody now. Not everyone uses traditional pronouns.
Making sure that they're going to come to work and feel comfortable and be
safe and included. It's really important. And obviously throughout this series we've heard some horror stories, frankly, regarding lack of inclusion within businesses, and it's just made people feel alienated, and it's, ultimately they'll leave. So it's making everybody feel as included as they can, and obviously workplace assessment for any additional needs that they might have.
So I think you've canted through all of the stages of the recruitment process. Have you any kind of parting words of wisdom for our listeners around making sure that recruitment is as inclusive as it can be?
The key thing I'd say is if there is anything that you need to make your recruitment consultant or line manager aware, or a talent team aware of from the beginning, don't be afraid of saying that. I've seen a lot of people go through processes and then at the end say, I need some help because of this, and it's actually, I could have really helped manage that if I'd known right from the beginning. And it's something I do ask within my selection processes, is there anything they should be aware of that I can help you with, so it's not seen as an inconvenience, that you're at work a long time every day. So it's got to be a safe, happy, inclusive place that you want to go to and that you will feel accepted in.
Absolutely. Well, thank you so much, Louise. I think that will have been helpful to anyone who's looking into their recruitment processes right now. It is worth saying that Louise is our D&I point guard. If you want help and advice on diversity and inclusion within recruitment, feel free to get in touch with Louise. She really is an expert in this area and she's more than happy to give help and advice where needed.
Absolutely.
Thanks so much, Louise.
Thanks, Rowena.
Thank you, listeners, and we'll see you next week.